opportunity to prove to yourself and more importantly to Allah that you trust Him. The time between your tests is not just for you to relax and forget about everything you've learned. It is a chance to prepare your heart, to strengthen your connection to Allah, and to build the resilience you'll need for whatever comes next. Because if there's one thing you can count on in this world, it's that nothing stays the same forever. Ease is followed by hardship. Hardship is followed by ease. That is the rhythm of life. And when you understand that, you stop being surprised when trials come and you start seeing them as part of the journey. So how do you prepare your heart for the next storm? The first thing is to maintain your connection with Allah, even when things are going well. It's easy to cry out to Him when you're desperate, but the real strength of your faith is measured by how much you remember Him when you don't feel like you need Him. The people who remember Allah in times of ease find it easier to turn to Him when times are hard. Their hearts are already used to relying on Him, already used to trusting His plan. The second thing is to build habits now that will carry you through later. Pray regularly. Even if you're already doing your 5 obligatory prayers, add some voluntary ones. Make dhikr a part of your daily routine, morning and evening remembrances that shield your heart from despair and fear. Read and reflect on the Quran, even if it's just a few verses each day. These small, consistent habits are what give your heart the strength it needs when life suddenly takes a turn. And finally, remind yourself often of what you've already been through. Think about the storms you've already survived. The nights you thought you wouldn't make it through and yet here you are. The burdens you thought would crush you, but somehow you carried them. This is not the first time Allah has helped you, and it won't be the last. Every test you faced in the past has left you stronger, wiser, more connected to your Creator. So when the next one comes, you can face it with the quiet confidence of someone who has already seen the mercy of Allah at work in their life. The point is not to fear the tests ahead, but to trust that the same Lord who brought you through before will bring you through again. And each time you will come out of it a little closer to Him, a little more aware of your own strength, and a little more grateful for every ease He grants you. So don't waste this time of peace and ease. Use it to prepare your heart. Because no matter what the future holds, your faith, your patience, and your trust in Allah will be your greatest protection. By now, you've walked through so much. You've endured sleepless nights that felt endless. You've carried heartbreaks that no one else could see. You felt alone even in a room full of people, wondering why you were chosen to bear such heavy burdens. And yet here you are still standing, still breathing, still hoping for something better. That in itself is proof of Allah's mercy, proof of your resilience, and proof that you were never as weak as you thought. But there is something even more profound than surviving your hardship, and that is learning to transform it into a purpose that defines the rest of your life. Too often people treat hardship as something to simply get through and leave behind. They rush to forget the pain, to bury the memories, to pretend the storm never happened. But if you do that, you miss the opportunity to discover one of the greatest gifts hidden inside your struggle, the chance to live a life of meaning, shaped by what you endured. You see, Allah doesn't just test you to see if you will survive. He tests you to awaken you to something deeper about yourself, to teach you lessons you could never have learned through comfort, to reveal to you your own strength and your own potential, and to remind you that your life was never meant to be about just you, but about how you can serve others and earn your place with Him in the hereafter. So how do you turn your journey into a lifelong purpose? It begins with asking yourself a question. Why do I think Allah put me through this? What could He be teaching me? Maybe He wanted you to feel pain so you could understand and help others in pain. Maybe He wanted you to experience loneliness so you would truly appreciate His companionship. Maybe He wanted you to lose something you thought you couldn't live without, so you would discover that He alone is enough. Maybe He wanted you to be broken, so you could finally become whole. Your hardship was not random. It was tailored perfectly to your soul, designed to shape you into someone who can now walk into the world with empathy, wisdom, and clarity of purpose. Think about all the people around you right now who are silently suffering, just as you once did. They feel invisible. They feel like no one understands them. They feel trapped in their own sadness, believing no one else has walked their path. But you have. And because you have, you are uniquely positioned to guide them through what they cannot yet see. You don't need to be a scholar or a speaker to make a difference. Sometimes the most powerful help comes from simply saying, I've been there, I know what that feels like, and I promise it won't always feel this way. Your scars become your testimony. Your tears become your message. And your survival becomes someone else's hope. When you see your hardship in this light, you begin to understand that even your pain was a blessing because it gave your life a meaning greater than yourself. You stop asking, why me? And start asking, how can I use this experience to serve Allah's creation? And when you begin to live for more than just yourself, you'll find a kind of peace and fulfillment you never knew before. This is what it means to turn hardship into purpose. To recognize that your life story is part of something much bigger than you. It means using what you've learned to leave the world a little better, to lighten someone else's burden, to remind people of Allah's mercy just by the way you live. And you don't have to change the whole world to succeed. Even if you just change one life, even if you just bring one heart back to Allah, even if you just inspire one person not to give up, you have achieved something monumental. Because in the eyes of Allah, no act of goodness, no moment of compassion, no sincere intention is ever too small to count. So don't let your hardship go to waste. Don't let your pain be just something you endured and then forgot. Let it be the foundation for the rest of your life. Let it be the fire that keeps you walking toward Allah no matter what comes next. And let it be the light you carry into the lives of others who are still searching for their own way through the darkness. This is how you honor your journey. This is how you make sure that every tear, every prayer, every step you took was worth it. By turning it into a lifelong purpose, one that draws you closer to your Lord and helps His creation along the way. And when your time in this world finally ends and you stand before Him, you will see the full picture of what He was building in you all along. And you will realize that not a single moment of your struggle was wasted. It was all leading you here to Him. Throughout this journey, we've spoken about hardship, healing, patience, and finding purpose in the trials you face. But there is one truth that surpasses all of these lessons. One truth that gives meaning not just to this moment in your life, but to your entire existence. That truth is this: you were not created for this world. You were created for something far greater. And every hardship you endure here, every moment you choose to trust Allah instead of despairing, every tear you shed with His name on your lips is being stored for you, not just as a blessing in this life, but as a treasure waiting for you in the hereafter. When you're in pain, it's easy to forget this. It's easy to get so caught up in your current sadness that you start to believe this is all there is. That the world is unfair, that your struggles are meaningless, that your prayers are unheard. But the believer knows better. The believer knows that this life is only a test, and that the real prize is waiting beyond the horizon of death. You see, Allah never promised you a life without hardship. But He did promise you a hereafter where every hardship will be repaid in full and more. He did promise you a moment when you will stand before Him and everything you suffered here will finally make sense. Imagine that moment. Imagine standing on the day of judgment surrounded by all of humanity. The sky above you is unlike anything you've ever seen. The ground beneath your feet feels like it's alive. and every soul is waiting to be judged. You stand there holding nothing but your deeds and the weight of the pain you carried so silently in this world. And then you see how Allah records it. You see that every sleepless night you endured patiently is written as a mountain of good deeds. You see that every dua you whispered through tears became a light on your scale. You see that every time you chose sabr over anger, hope over despair, faith over fear, it brought you closer to the ultimate success. And then you see the reward that was waiting for you all along. Gardens of paradise stretching as far as the eye can see. Rivers flowing with water, milk, honey, and wine of paradise. Palaces more beautiful than you could have imagined. And most importantly, the peace of knowing that you have pleased your Lord and that you will never feel sadness or fear again. The Quran tells us, indeed, Allah has purchased from the believers their lives and their properties in exchange for that they will have paradise. This means everything you endured here, all of your pain, all of your struggles was part of a transaction. You gave Allah your patience and He will give you Jannah. You gave Him your trust and He will give you peace beyond anything this world can offer. Even the smallest hardships will not go unrewarded. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, told us that on the day of judgment, when those who suffered the most in this world see the rewards Allah has prepared for them, they will say, "Oh, how we wish we had suffered even more, so that our reward would be even greater." Imagine that, the pain you hate right now, the nights you thought you couldn't survive on that day, you'll wish you had endured even more, because the reward is so overwhelming. This is why it's so important to keep your eyes on the hereafter. Because if you only look at this world, you will always feel disappointed. Here, the wrong people seem to succeed. Here, injustice exists. Here, the ones who hurt you may never apologize. But this world is not the final chapter. Allah is saving the best for last. And knowing that changes everything. It gives you strength when you feel weak. It gives you hope when you feel hopeless. It gives you perspective when you feel lost. And it helps you remember the story is not over yet. Your life doesn't end with this hardship. It continues into an eternity of joy, light, and peace if you just hold on a little longer. So whenever you feel like giving up, remind yourself, you are not just enduring pain, you are earning paradise. You are not just crying into the dark, you are planting seeds of light for the hereafter. You are not just surviving, you are investing in the eternal. And when you finally cross over into the next life and you see how beautifully Allah has written your story, you will understand. You will see why you had to wait. You will see why the doors you begged for were kept closed. You will see why the hardship lasted just as long as it did and not a moment longer. And you will know with complete certainty that every single moment of patience was worth it. So don't let this world make you forget where you're really headed. You were made for more than this. You were made for Him. And every choice you make to trust Him now is bringing you closer to a home where sadness will never touch you again. You've heard by now how your hardship has a purpose, how it can bring you closer to Allah, how it can shape you into someone stronger, wiser, more grateful, how it can become a source of light not only for you but for those around you, and how in the end it will all be worth it when you see what Allah has prepared for you in the hereafter. But even knowing all of that, it can still feel overwhelming because you still have to wake up tomorrow and face the same struggles. You still have to live each day carrying the same weight, fighting the same battles inside yourself. And sometimes the thought of trying to fix everything or become better can feel like too much. And that's okay, because this journey is not about becoming perfect overnight. It's not about suddenly being free from sadness or suddenly being able to smile through everything without feeling pain. It's about showing up even when you're tired, even when you're broken, even when you feel like you have nothing left to give, and still taking one small step toward Allah every single day. This is something many of us forget. You don't have to do everything at once. You don't have to pray every sunnah and read a juz of Quran and fast every Monday and Thursday all at the same time. You don't have to have all the answers, or feel strong all the time, or feel completely at peace before you start walking toward Him. You just have to start. And you just have to keep moving, even if your steps feel small and shaky. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, reminded us of this when he said, the most beloved deeds to Allah are those that are consistent, even if they are small. Because Allah does not measure you by the size of your step. He measures you by your sincerity, by your determination to keep going, and by your willingness to try again after every setback. So live each day with faith, even in small steps.